Hey guys, Ben Taylor here with Raw Motivations. If you hadn't had a chance to watch some of my content earlier, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel, on Instagram, on Facebook, on TikTok, to be able to provide awareness about what narcissism is, to be able to provide growth, healing, and change for people that don't know what's going on with this term, this topic about narcissism, and how it affects them when they're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, sociopath, psychopath, or just an overall toxic person that's really impacting and affecting your lives. We try to do this as Raw Motivations in a couple different ways. It's by producing the content on those platforms, by having live events. Right now we have Wednesdays from 9 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube and Facebook, interactions between myself and also Lee Hammock, Mental Healness, to be able to talk about and answer questions of people that are just going through it, and be able to help answer quick questions, to be able to try to help give people clarity so they know what's going on. I'm also on those platforms next night, Thursday, from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time, to be able to interact with people, answer questions. Sometimes we have different guests come on, different things like that, just to be able to help establish an idea of what's going on, whether you have questions from your perspective, or what's the narcissist thinking, or what's the safe thing to do, how do I work through co-parenting issues, what's the different things. And so a lot of times we have that. We also have the NARC app, which has come out just a couple months ago. It's called NARC, N-A-R-C, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. It's a community of like-minded people that are either in, getting out, or free, that are trying to help encourage each other. Inside that app, there's not just courses, there's ways to be able to track your no contact, to record your truth, and to be able to engage with a community there of like-minded people for advice, for support. We also have weekly calls that we do inside the app for just own security and safety protection of the people that are in these relationships. Because we want to make sure you're safe when you're asking questions, when you're sharing, and there's not a chance for there to be any blowback or anything that could come out of it, because we want to be there as a help and a safe support system for you. We also have monthly Zoom calls that we're implementing for people inside the app as well, for them to be able to engage and with community face-to-face, but also have times where we spend coaching and developing and learning different attributes of what we're going to focus on month to month, to find your healing, to find your growth, and continue that moving forward. So really excited just to be in the platforms to try to talk through some of these things. What I wanted to talk to you today is, I want to talk to you about the idea of triangulation. There's been a couple of videos out there, a couple things that's done, but triangulation, when you don't know what it is, just seems very confusing. Whether it seems on the lines of lying, gaslighting, jealousy, a lot of different things that kind of go around it. But triangulation at its core is the idea of where you have two different people in the relationship, and the idea is the toxic person is trying to leverage both those people against each other to be able to get more out of it. And you can think of it almost in a gambling aspect of, someone ups the bet, someone's going to up the next ante. They're going to say ante up, and let's go ahead and match that to make sure that we're all on the same page. So for instance, if you're getting, love and affection from one person up to this level, and then you're only getting love and affection from this person, then the narcissist, the toxic person, is hey, this person, you're doing great. This is the love bombing stage, the idealization. Hey, you're amazing. Hey, with this person, hey, you're not as good as this person. Okay, and they try to raise up what that person's doing. As they raise up, then it's kind of this teeter-totter effect that they're trying to raise the level of what they're getting. Affection, love, supply, finances, whatever it might be. They're trying to raise that time and time again to be in control and to be able to invest the least amount as possible. Now, it's normally not as blatant as, hey, that person, is better than you. But oftentimes it is. Oftentimes you'll have that relationship where they might have, a person that they cheated with, or a person that they've been with, and they'll be well, so-and-so wouldn't treat me like this, and so-and-so wouldn't do this, and, well, you're not going to give me this, maybe I could go get that from so-and-so. And they'll keep trying to use those different, digs, and a lot of times they're very, passive-aggressive, or kind of, under the surface, but ultimately is trying to get you to think, wait a second, what's wrong with me, and why are they so much better? Especially when it starts to mess with the idea of, you look at the other person, you're wow, you're not as handsome as me, or you're not as pretty as me, or you're not set up financially, or you don't have your life together. Why is this person attracted to you and not to me? And when that happens, you'll normally start in this kind of push-pull kind of like battle, wanting to increase what you're doing. Maybe you look at that person and they've got their life together in finances, okay? Well, how can you increase your job? How can you work harder? How can you do more? And what happens is the toxic person in the middle just smiles that it happens because they produced a reaction out of you. They made you work harder for them. When in reality, they didn't invest anything at all. And it's almost like the idea of like bartering, where you're saying like, hey, I'll give you $20 for this. And then the other person's like, well, I'll give you, $25 for this. And it just keeps going back and forth. And you go back from one vendor to another being like, well, actually he said that he'd give it to me for $20. Like, can you do better than that? Oh, I'll give it to you for $18. Okay, awesome. And then obviously we're going down in price, but the same concept is you're going back and forth. The toxic person is going back and forth to try to change what's happening in that scenario. Maybe they want more sex. Maybe they want more money. Maybe they want more, whatever it might be. It's like, how do I get more of that without actually paying anything? Without actually investing in the other relationship? Narcissists will often do this with peer-to-peer. So a spouse and a girlfriend, or two girlfriends, or whatever it might be, they'll often do it peer-to-peer. Other times when you see it, they'll do it peer to someone above them. So like a spouse to a mother, or a girlfriend to a mother, or a boyfriend to a father, or something like that, where they'll compare it back to another person. This was big in my relationship when we first started. And typically it came around the aspect of cooking. Of like, my wife would try to like make something, and I'd be like, my mom tastes better than this. It would be that idea of triangulation of like, you're not doing good enough. You need to do better to meet the standard that I have in my mind. But I'm going to say that, so one, it hurts, it devalues, but then it also makes that person strive to do more, strive to increase, strive to do it better. I remember one time there was an argument that we had about how a certain dish didn't taste the way it was supposed to taste. It didn't match the standard that I was looking for, because that standard was my mother. And so whenever I said that, like, she's like, no, like, I did it exactly the same way. I was like, no, like, those are different noodles. Like, that's the problem. Like, you messed up because you used different noodles. That's the idea, nitty gritty, just transparent example there of triangulation. Now, triangulation can also happen with people that you're not with. Say you're walking down the street and your toxic person's like, wow, like, check that girl out. She's really cute. Or, you're walking down the street and she's commenting on like a guy's money or on something he's wearing. And what you see that happen in like small subtle digs, thinking through like, wow, like if I bought that dress, if I bought that, car, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't make me feel any better, but you try. You like, maybe I'll do this. Maybe I'll change my hair. I'll change my looks. I'll change my job. I'll change the things I wear. I'll change all these different types of things to be able to get to that place where you finally find that validation. The problem is that validation keeps moving. Those goalposts keep shifting. Oftentimes, narcissists will do it in the family. They'll do it with a sibling, or they'll do it with a son or a daughter. And so you have the narcissistic person that's using one of the children to triangulate the other spouse. And it gets very confusing of like, wait, why are you giving them more time? Why are you giving them more attention? Why are you love bombing them more when I'm your spouse? When I'm the one that's supposed to get more attention? And they'll use that to kind of go back and forth, to pit people against each other, to break down family dynamics, but ultimately to try to get more supply from another person. So when you're in your relationship and you're thinking through, walking down the street, when you're thinking through, going through the store, when you're thinking through interacting with your toxic person and their friends, their family, or out and about, what do you start to notice? Do you start to notice subtle comments? Do you start to notice how they might pay attention to someone in a certain aspect? Their eyes, their hair, their face, their money, their cars. What do you notice? And then do they notice the same things? Do they respond the same way about you? If they don't, that might be a sign that they're trying to use triangulation. They're trying to make you look at someone else and think, if I was that way, then they would love me more. The problem is when you start to think that way, you start changing who you are. I was talking to someone today on a one-on-one, and they said, I just feel like a shell of a person. Like I just feel like everything I used to be, I just feel is not there. And that's what happens with a narcissist. They start to slowly take away at that, and you're changing and developing and modifying everything about yourself to be that way for a certain person. But at the end of the day, that certain person doesn't care. And they don't care what you've changed for them. All they care is what they get. And if they keep getting certain supply, if they keep getting certain attention, that intention keeps increasing to make them feel like the God they think they are, like the center of the universe, then they keep that person around. But when it starts to wane or change, or when they start to understand like, hey, like this is not a healthy relationship, these are not healthy boundaries, this is not common respect or love, mutual respect back and forth, that's when you start to see the narcissist bring someone in to try to up the supply that you're giving so that they get more out of you. So be careful if you're in these types of relationships. Be careful if you're starting to notice those subtle digs, the comments about other people, the focus on other people, but that focus never comes back on you. That focus never comes back to the place of them complimenting you, respecting you, honoring you, and demonstrating that on a day-to-day basis.